Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for a new NSL live talk session. And this today is, oh, Joey, yesterday was February the 15th, right? So today must be February the 16th. I say that, and I talked to Joey because we spoke yesterday.
Yes, we did. About the Danish project.
About the Danish project. We'll get to that at a different time, and it will post very soon. But anyhow, welcome to Lena Jones and Joey Jones on the top left, and to Eliana Rodriguez. And I'm gonna turn Joey Jones. We have listened to, and we have had the pleasure and the fun to see him on NSL Live Talk many times, also live at events for NSL Talk and commentary. So we are very used to him. But Lena, Lena we haven't seen so often, and Lena is Joey's wife, right?
Yes, she is, of 17 years, I think. Yeah. It's been a long time. Let's call it 17. I think it's 18, 17 and a half, I think, so, or 18. I don't know.
Yeah, sounds...
So I will leave the rest up to you. I'm going to turn into a listener, and I will maybe once in a while throw a question in here and there, as it is a real interesting topic that we are taking on, and Joey will take it from here.
All right, thank you, Kurt. It's always a pleasure to be back. I just in this time, it's a little bit downtime for everybody with competition, and we're all still interested in the sport, and I thought a little talk about the history of the women's category and women in the sport, and just how it progressed and how things have changed. So we've got a couple of instrumental ladies that were at milestones in the sport. The first one is my wife, Lena Jones. She was a member of the Swedish female team a while ago.
A while ago.
We actually met at the World Cup in 1998. Yeah. I was on FX, and she was on the Swedish female team. And that was the first year that women's skydiving had its own event. And I think my wife can tell a little bit about her role and her experience going from competing for competing in Sweden as a national competitor to going international in the female category. I will turn it over to my lovely wife, Lena.
Let me throw in one question quickly before we go to that athletic part. How did you meet eventually in '98, and how did that happen that you something else going?
Amy?
Well, we don't need to tell all the details.
It's a long story. Let's just say that
I had interest in the Swedish.
We met.
I had interest in the female team for sure. It was all these girls on the drop zone. You're like,
yeah, not necessarily me.
And
we met,
and we became friends. And then later, my wife moved to DeLand after she retired from competition. After I believe it was World Cup in 2002 in Spain was your last competition. Yeah. I mean, most people know my wife is a packer. She's packed in almost every world meet except for one in the last 10 years or something. But before that, she competed from 98 till 2003 as a member of the Swedish team. But she can get into that. But once she moved to DeLand and was taking her post-competitive time on the drop zone packing, we got together and we've been happily married now.
We were friends, and one day he just decided to knock on the door and
so in 1998 you were not a couple, you just met each other.
Yeah, we just met.
Joey was the cute little guy in the American team, you know. And that was about it.
And she was on the Swedish team.
Okay, so back to the topic. We are in 1998.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
So how it all started, I don't even know where to begin with this whole story. I had been competing in mixed teams before for pleasure, the female team, and I was in the Swedish project, an 8-way, and it was Anne-Marie Jarzebowski, who is now competing for Australia. She's a Aussie champion, very proud of her. Yes, and we were teammates in the project 8-way, and then in for pleasure. And we had Solly as a coach, not in the 8-way, but in the 4-way. And we were all really strong, Swedish, independent women, you know, and very much tomboys. And it was a total fluke that it ended up being 4 women on this team. And Solly brought it up one day. It's like, hey, so I was just going to run this by you. So don't you think that it should be a separate female category? And all 4 of us like, what? What are you talking about? We were totally against it because we were just used to, you know, jumping with the guys. And you got to remember that this is now 97, probably. It's a long time ago. And so we were totally against it. And then we started to think about it. And he brought up some really good points, just physically about strength and that it is different. And he won us over. And yeah, we started to work towards making that happen. And
didn't you have some experiences though, being on mixed teams and experiencing what some call the glass ceiling?
Yes, very much so. We had a.
Why don't you share that story just quickly? But
okay, quickly. So the Swedish project, the 8-way. Craig was our coach, by the way. Eliana, you know that.
Yeah.
It was Anne-Marie and myself. We were the only girls. And to make a long story really short, at the end we were kind of kicked out of the team because we were women. Nobody else in the team except one continued doing anything, and Anne-Marie and I obviously ran with it. And yeah, a little bit of a sour taste in our mouth, but the fact that we ended up being 4 girls on this team was an absolute coincidence.
it was a fluke. Huh?
It was a fluke.
Nice.
Because we were.
That's for pleasure.
Yeah, as for pleasure, yeah.
And the members were?
Gunnlaug Edgren, Pernilla Brosell, Anne-Marie Jarzabowski, and myself.
And the camera person?
Anders Brosell, the best cameraman.
On a
ever.
side note, Anders is still the cameraman for the Swedish
Yes,
Open
he
team
is awesome.
Echo Chamber. So
Love him.
he's got some resilience in his career
Yes.
as a
He's
film
great.
of the World Cup champion team in '98 and still competing actively for Sweden.
Yeah.
So once you guys decided, what route did you go to?
There was a lot of emails that was sent and phone calls, and Solly was also very involved in the process. And I think I can't remember all the details actually how it happened. I wish I did.
Can I throw something in quickly before we move on from there? I'm just curious, Eliana, what were you doing at that time? At this time, 97, 98, and so forth.
Yeah. So 1997, I had just, I'd been out of the military 1 year because I was in the military for almost 4 years. And I had moved back to Florida, and I was just fun jumping in Titusville, which is actually the first place I saw Joey and Don and FX, you know?
Nice.
But yeah, I remember seeing you guys train, hard. The wind tunnel opened in 1998, and somebody actually suggested to me that they said, why don't you apply since you live nearby? Because I lived in Kissimmee, Florida. And I didn't think I was ready. I had 200 jumps, and I thought, they need like AFF instructors and somebody with like 1,000 jumps. And so, but they introduced me to the right people, to another instructor, Troy Keys, that was already hired there. They haven't even opened the tunnel. And then they introduced me to the general manager, Mickey. Mm-hmm. And so I went over and applied, and I got hired. But I didn't know anything about, I had seen 4-way teams, but I still didn't really kind of understand it. And I didn't know anything about the women's event or anything like that. Didn't even
there was another famous skydiver hired at the same time, basically, right?
Yes. Well, he came in a little bit later.
A little bit later, yes.
Yeah, a little
Thomas.
bit later. Thomas Hughes, yeah.
Yeah.
But you must remember. You must remember all the girls' teams training then for the World Championships and all the Norgis and the Swedish girls, and obviously the Russian girls, and all those teams in there training a little bit.
When I think back, I remember it was more like I competed in 2000 in intermediate,
right,
with Thomas at the Land Tunnel Rage. And then shortly
yeah, I
after
remember
that, I
that.
got the call from Lilac about joining a women's team because there was going to be a women's event, World Cup in the US, and there was no US women's team.
Well, let's finish Lena's story, and then we'll get, because we're gonna keep the timeline going, and we'll
Yeah.
bring you back in. So you sent some letters.
Yes, I wish that I had better record of logistically how we actually made it happen, but it started to be so long ago that I don't remember. But anyway, we show up there and are super excited, and we had no idea about what was going to happen. Like the Russian female team, they came to us with a big bottle of champagne and a handwritten letter, and they were so grateful. And they explained to us that in their country, in Russia, they weren't even allowed to train and jump formation skydiving because it was not a military sport. So they were, all they could do was jump accuracy and style and all of that. And all they wanted to do to go and jump and compete in four-way.
Yeah, because there wasn't a competitive discipline for female skydiving.
And the Russians, obviously, I mean, the
glass ceiling,
the guys,
is strong.
They clearly, obviously represented their country, but they weren't allowed as women to do it. So they were in tears, and they were so, we obviously had no idea about this. So that was pretty cool. And we were, after the fact, after we made it happen, we were floored and very surprised of the love and support and just inputs from women all over the world in skydiving, especially competitors, and just saying thank you, like, oh my God, it's something that we've been thinking about, that we've been wanting, but it was a hot topic because we were proud about the fact of like, no, it's totally equal, we're gonna jump together. And but then all of a sudden it just boom, and all of these women came out, because after the fact, looking back, we never had role models back in that day. Dawn was a rock star. Before we came to Portugal, we didn't know she existed. We'd met Lisa, obviously, because Sweden, Norway, but that was the only female competitor that was there for us to look to. So it was a 100% almost a male's world. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 all of these things happen. And you could see these women out there all of a sudden competing. And I don't think that it would have happened if we hadn't created the female class. Maybe it would have, but it would have taken a lot longer.
So Eliana, we can segue right into you here, how your story builds on that, because obviously the female category kept going, you guys kept competing.
Yeah.
We had some strong teams, and you got a phone call from Lilac Hayes.
Yes. So
take it from there. Take the history another step farther.
It's interesting to hear this because I didn't know what was going on before I came on the scene, because I was just oblivious to it, and I was pretty new
pre-me time.
I was pretty new to four-way in general, and so it was interesting that I had, in 2000 I won the intermediate event, and I was working at the tunnel, so some people already knew that I was doing four-way. But actually, before I say this, it's funny because Kurt Gable was my first coach, and I was on a women's team. I was on Illusions in 1999. Yeah, I was. Yeah. So when I first started working at the tunnel, there was a group of girls looking for one more, and they asked me if I wanted to be on the team, and I was like, sure. And they said, we're going to get a coach, and I'm like, okay. And I was thinking, like, I wonder what he's going to teach me, because I already flew the tunnel, like I could go up and down, I could move around. And I had seen
what else is there to learn?
I had seen four-way, but it's like I didn't even grasp it because I wasn't doing it. I was like, you kind of turn, go up and down, move around. So
that's so cute.
I was like, what else is there? What else is there to learn?
I'm not a very good free flyer.
I had like 200 jumps, and my first day doing four-way with this team and Kurt explaining everything, I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything. And I was completely hooked. And so it's his fault that I got into four-way so much.
Wow.
But
Wow, I didn't know that. That's great.
So my first team was a women's team. Unfortunately, I couldn't continue with them because my mom got sick and had cancer, and she passed away. But so I took some time off, but when I came back, there was another team forming, And that was the Tunnel Rage team with Thomas Hughes and Glenn Mendes and Kyle Stark. And and so we went to the nationals in 2000 and we won. And then like within a month, I got a phone call from Lilac Hayes. I was at the tunnel. I still remember I was controlling and they called me up and I got on the phone and she was like, hey, we want to, there's a new event and it's going to be in the US and there is no women's team. It's a women's event. And we would like to put a team together to participate in this event. And I was like, wow, that sounds really interesting. We have Sally Hathaway, Sally Stewart, and it was Lilac Hayes, and then Sally's ex-husband at the time, Tony Hathaway.
Tony Hathaway.
Video, yeah, I was gonna do video. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. Like, when is the competition? I was thinking like next year. And they're like, next month. I'm like, next month. I'm like, are we even going to be like ready for this World Cup? I mean, it sounds like a pretty big competition. Or it was a World Cup at the time.
World Cup, yeah, in Eloy.
World Cup 2000, yeah, and it was a
2000
competition. 2000.
Were you there? Just one moment, Eliana. Were you at that?
At that competition, I was there as an alternate.
As an alternate.
Yeah, we changed some members out because I needed a break.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
Yeah.
But I was there and I remember.
So they said, well, they've already had an event, like a test event, and they had kind of seen the averages, and they thought that with just we can do a couple weekends and maybe some training right before the meet, and we can be competitive. And I thought, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. When am I ever going to get a chance to go to a World Cup again? So
this could have been the last time.
I was like, well, okay, let's do it. And so we did. We did a couple days of training in Florida, and then we went to the meet and did a little bit of training right before that. And we ended up winning, with like an 11. I can't remember exactly, but it was like 11 something average, And so after that, the world meet was really close to the World Cup. It was only like 6 months later. And so they had asked us if we wanted to represent the US at the world meet, and so then we were like, okay, but we want to train this time. And that's when Joey came into the picture. Joey was my next coach. Yeah.
Hey.
I want to throw in something quickly, just to, going back to Lilac. She was also on another women's team that I was coaching before, 4B.
Sebastian 4MB, which I coached after you did, I think.
Kim Griffin.
So that's two teams that we both have coached.
Does anybody actually know what 4B stands for?
Four non-blondes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you were their coach, Kurt.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm asking if somebody else knows it.
Yeah.
I knew it, of course. I was asking if somebody else would know it.
Yeah, once I moved to Sebastian, I took them because I lived there. But yeah, that was we coached them before. That's how I got with the US girls, was having coached Lilac on 4MB there at the end there. So
we decided, we're like, okay, we're going to be serious this time. We're going to do some training, hire a coach, and we did about 300 jumps between the World Cup and the World Meet, and we did some tunnel. I don't remember how much, but I felt like, that was the most I'd ever trained, because before that I'd done like 100 jumps a year, and I worked at the tunnel, so it was like serious,
back to backs and
that was the first time I like
homework
really
and the whole deal.
And it was a lot of fun, and the World Meet was a lot of fun. It was my first World Meet. I didn't know had no expectations. I didn't know what to expect, and the whole experience, like that whole, we went in there, we had won the World Cup, we had done a test meet with a little small test competition in DeLand with some of the other women's teams, beforehand, and we had won that, and so we kind of went in as like the favorites. But after the first couple of rounds, we weren't ahead, we were behind. We had a couple busts, then we started going really cautiously because we were afraid to bust. And so then halfway through the meet, like, we decided we were going to be ourselves, and we went for it. And little by little, we started moving up.
We were 5 points down with 5 rounds to go.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty dark situation. And Solly was coaching the Brit girls, and they had all these camera crews. And Gary was coaching
For Pleasure,
the Swedish girls. My wife was on that team.
I was the alternate. I wasn't jumping on
You
the
weren't
team.
jumping on the
No,
team.
I
You were the
wasn't.
alternate that year
I
as
didn't
well.
come back until 2004. I had a break.
So you didn't compete in that one.
No,
Yeah. But
but
going into round 10, the
Yeah,
Swedish team was winning that competition.
Yeah.
Was coaching the Norwegians. That was another.
Shannon was coaching.
Shannon was coaching
Yeah,
Norwegians. Yeah, we had a huge DeLand
Yeah.
coaches competition as well. Coffee and coaching, and like, all right, which team's gonna win? And I was getting a lot of shit from those guys because we came in pretty ready to go. We felt strong, but we had a rough start.
Because I remember the like talk on the town is that you guys were the favorites, and then you had a bit of a dip there, and it's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
what's happening to the Americans? And then Sweden
we put
did
our
really
heads
good,
down.
and then of course we crashed.
And that last
you guys did amazing.
And one more thing, I think it was like the second or third round, I twisted my ankle. Remember?
Did
It was
you?
like
Yeah.
on the landing area, it was like uneven, and I twisted it, and it hurt really bad. And the medics there were like, "What are you gonna do? You can't compete." I was like, "What? Like we didn't have an
Baloney.
alternate." I was like,
I didn't know that.
Watch this.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
fortunately, we didn't have another round that day. And Lilac Hayes is a physical therapist. So she kind of checked me out. She's like, okay, you can go this way, but not this way. And she wrapped me up, and we iced and we did
Okay.
everything. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
drama behind the scenes you never know about.
But then on that round 10, I think it was 017 QJ or something. I don't remember.
It was 17 for sure.
It was 07. It was 017 out the door, and then it
Yeah.
was a Q.
Yeah. And the N, there was an N in there too.
Yeah, N,
We
017
busted.
QN, 017
we busted
QN.
the 17. That's what
And we were down
Yeah.
by 2 or 3 points. Kurt can figure this out.
Yeah.
And
3 points. We were down by 3.
down by 3 points. And the Swedish team had a rough jump, and we ended up jumping. Oh, he's going to find it for us.
Yeah.
2001. There it is.
Pretty good.
And
Went to the archives.
Oh,
we got 2 points on the Norgie
Yeah.
girls, and we got 5 points on For Pleasure to win by 4.
Yeah.
So 14.7 average, pretty good
Mhm.
jump from 2003. But you can see in the beginning here, rounds 2, 3, and 4, we were way off there. We gave up a lot of rounds there in the beginning.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Never mind.
Never mind.
Memory lane.
Memory lane.
Yeah,
But it was a
remember
really-
there's a very emotional roller coaster. You know, we came in with like high hopes, then it was like our hopes were got damped a little bit, and then we started bringing it back and finished on a big high.
Yeah, you did.
Russia won the 8-way that year with the controversial thing, but
Oh yeah.
there was the big team meetings, and I know, Eliana, that you were recognized for the resilience that you showed during that competition by some other competitors. Can you tell us what happened after that?
Yeah, so that was like the competition of my life. I felt like in that competition, I went from, before that, I was always like, okay, I'm going to do the team for this year, but I have to take a break because my credit cards are like sky high, and I was going to school. I had to focus on school. And so, I did like, when I did the Tunnel Ridge team, I thought I was going to take a break for a year. And then this team came up, and I'm like, okay, I'll do the World Cup, but then after that, I'll take a break. And so after this meet, I was like, it had such an amazing time. And I think it's all the hard work we put into it, and that, it was that fighting for it throughout the
You wanted some more.
And then when we ended up winning, it was like the best. And so after that, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but this is what I want to do. I want to figure out how I'm going to do this like 4-way more, And so after we left the competition, I had Airspeed, actually, Arizona Airspeed invited me to come try out a slot that was opening up on their team after Alan Metney left. So they had been looking for teammates, and so they met me in the wind tunnel and competition to see how be able to perform under pressure. And I guess it showed them that I could. And then later on, they invited me to come out to try out for Airspeed.
So just as a recap for the history buffs, some influential women in the sport, the first World Cup is Lena, And then the first women's World Cup, the first women's world meet champion is Eliana. In the open category, the first female to win a medal is Lisa Auna. She won 3 bronzes, Kurt, you said? In
99, 2001, 2003.
Yeah, she's won 3 world bronzes. And then in 1998, at the same competition where my wife won the women's event, my team that I was on at the time, FX, had a female on it, Dawn English. And she was the first woman to win a World Cup in the open category. And as that story unfolds, Eliana can continue what happened with her progression and how.
Yeah, so I made it on airspeed after the tryouts, and I ended up on the team for 9 years.
Fantastic.
And yeah, so after that, you know, we started off doing 4-way together, and then we joined the 2 teams to do 8-way. So in 2003, we had a really tight, close meet that went into a jump off, but we ended up in 2nd behind the Russians. But in 2004, I went on to become the first woman 8-way world champion.
Yay!
Yes, in slot. I have to say in slot, because in 2001, the Elena, the camera girl, was I guess a woman world champion.
World champion, yes.
Champion in 2001. So I would say she did it on the video slot. I did it in slot.
That was in 2003, right? Elena Verti-Prokova.
Yeah. In 2003. Yeah. And then I continued on with airspeed, and we went through different changes. Like at one point we were just focused on the 8-way, and then we so, you know, some team members
I remember that,
and things changed. And then we switched over to the 4-way, and focusing on the 4-way. And then in 2008 we got to win the 4-way open world championships.
I want to throw this in quickly too. I mean, first of all, I remember that conversation when you were thinking about going to the desert. So that was really, you know, we discussed that for a little while there. It was interesting.
Yeah.
But I want to point out just quickly here that Eliana, on the bottom, Eliana Rodriguez is the only person in the history of the sport who has won a 4-way gold medal in 3 different events: in 4-way women, in 4-way open, and in 8-way.
Good job, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a couple. There's a few getting the 4-way, the 8-way, and trying different things. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see in the future.
Well, we have one person who may follow that pattern, right? Who is that? Quiz.
Michelle, right?
No, yes, no, not in. She doesn't have 4-way women yet. She doesn't have 8-way yet. But there's one person who has already 4-way women and 8-way.
Jen Davidson.
There you go.
Yeah, Jen Davidson. Yeah, she's got the 4-way women in 2016. And then the 8-way in, what year was the 8-way? 2000.
Was it 16?
18?
Yeah, 16 Dubai?
No, 16 was
Dubai was 12. That was 12.
Yeah.
She did the women's 4-way in Chicago in 16.
That's
Chicago.
16
and then
16.
the 8-way was after.
Was after that.
I think it was in Australia.
18 Australia.
Yes, 18.
I mean, since we're talking about the women's the Army having a female team, if you want to talk about breaking through some glass ceilings, just to get the Army to recognize it and make the women's class, and then to have a female on their 8-way team is just a result of the hard work that started back here.
Should I maybe tell the story about the French coach?
Sure. We don't need to name names.
Oops.
But I beat him in competition.
So this was at the World Cup in Eloy. And obviously the female category was still new. France had no team to represent France. And this guy came up and talked to me, and we were watching the judging on the big screen. And he told me flat out, that France is never going to have a female team ever. He knew exactly who he was talking to. And oh, is that so? And he's like, no, women, they belong behind the stove. And this is not happening. He just wanted to make it very clear that just stop this shenanigans with this stupid female class. We are never going to stand behind it. And look what happened. Just as a little story.
Well, there,
We don't
there
want
was
to know that name. There's a cancellation culture right now. So this guy will probably be canceled. So we don't even want to know who it is, right?
yes. I mean, when you look at the people that fought against it, I mean, the USPA didn't want to fund the girls when the year that I went to the World Meet, and Magic actually refused our money and said, we want to split it with the girls. We're not going to take money that you're not sharing with the rest of the team. But they didn't want to recognize the category in the beginning and actually refused funding and said they were going to fund us when we went to the World Cup, World Meet, and not the girls. And we told them to F off. But that's just one of the things, and all the French national coach was all, you know, saying that the women we're never going to have a category. And look at what the French girls have done now. I mean, if they've been amazing. The girls have got a gold in the girls have a female gold, and there's possibility that they're going to get an 8-way gold if we ever have a World Meet again.
And you have the team that you're coaching, the tunnel team. Wow.
Oh, Wemby. They're World Cup champions indoor. The two girls are World Cups indoor. So they actually have won a gold medal in 4-way and a gold medal in female. Sophie and Christine have both won gold medals in open category. It's indoor, not outdoor. But so, I mean, those are all products of the female category, though. Just when you talk about what it's done, you've got a mixed team representing France in the indoor scene now, which they said a few years ago they would never have a women's category. So I just think it's really neat what it's done, and now we've got women. The French Open team has a female on it.
I think we still see ripple effects from it.
The U.S. team now has a female on it. The current team that's going to represent the U.S. at the World Championships has females on it. So it's great. It's good success. Yay!
Good job, Lena, for getting it started.
Then at the same time, I have to throw this in though, but we had already in the later 80s, France had an all-female 4-way team that was that was basically the second
Coca-Cola team, right?
Coca-Cola girls, but that was civilian sponsored and not part of the federation.
But
they had nothing to do with it.
They were just athletically, they were one of the 2 or 3 best 4-way teams in the world.
Yeah, and actually, when we started the female class, they came up in conversation sometimes because they were like number 2, or they were one of the best teams in the world, and they could never go and compete internationally anywhere. They were,
Anyway, the French team weren't sanctioned by the federation to go to the World Meet, I don't believe.
No, they went to a World Cup. They couldn't go to a World Meet.
Exactly.
Because there was no event for them anywhere. They were not the national team. France had a better national open class team. They were the second best team, but they were not the best team. So they were naturally not the 4-way open national team, but they competed at World Cups.
Yeah.
Good.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, Lisa, we were hoping for a surprise visitor here, Lisa Nansen, Aune Nansen, formerly Aune, who was at with the Norgies in that triple bronze medal period between 99 and 2003, but she didn't make it, unfortunately.
And she was somebody that I was like, because she was training in DeLand, coming to work, coach and train in the tunnel. I was definitely looking up to her and Don English, like, oh, I hope someday I could be like them,
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you did it. I think you made it. I think you surpassed it all. So, yes.
I think she was a role model for many people, not only for girls, also for boys. I was always impressed.
This is amazing.
Anything.
Yeah.
Stood for. And she's still out there, she still jump at least indoor, she brought her husband Nikolai into 4-way, 8-way now.
Got him hooked.
Got him hooked.
Well, hi Lisa, we were missing you. Hopefully we'll see you maybe at another time. And I'm afraid we're coming to an end here now, right? I mean, I wouldn't mind continuing to listen for a little longer if there are more stories coming, but it sounds like we're coming to an end here.
I think so. I think it's a good start. It's enough time now. Thanks, Eliana, for taking the time out of your morning to join us.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you guys. It's good to see you. And I learned a little something about how it all started, because I I didn't know exactly what would happen before I arrived on the scene. So it was
You got
good-
the
good
very
history
short
lesson for me.
version.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Lena and
Kurt.
Joey Jones, Eliana Rodriguez, and I hope to see you very soon again live.
Thank you, Kurt.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you guys. Bye-bye. Best wishes to you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.